It seems like it's lagging. Right now, I didn't even feel like. Damn, this wasn't even up. I didn't feel like doing this right now. Just been feeling bad a little bit, but anyway. But I'm gonna play this video. I'm gonna play this video. And when I listened to the video at first, I listened to like a few seconds of the video. And the man already brought up Hideo Kojima for some odd reason. So I'm like, I'm already put off by it. This is a guy, I don't know his name. This is the first time I'm listening to the channel. But it's about Cyberpunk, to be honest, because I mean that is the hot topic still to this day. So I was like, this dude, I don't know. I'm gonna just be playing it. And when you get to Hideo, because I already said what I have to say about dude in the video, Death Stranding sucks. I'm gonna be posting this on my Brojito RDX page and Spitting Games, but you can see how I felt about Death Stranding on the Spitting Games channel. So I'm gonna just play it and hopefully this plays. So here we go. I should turn this down.
CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 may have been the most anticipated release of our time. Yet, in what can only be described as a disastrous launch, the game's been pulled from the PS4's digital store, players are reporting myriad bugs and glitches within the game, and its devs have become the personas non grata of the gaming world. There's just so much, potentially, to talk about when it comes to this game, and while I could spend entire videos just focusing on, say, how the game was marketed, how trying to use and even exploit social media completely blew up in its face, or how much this fiasco bizarrely echoes other recent dogpiles atop actually otherwise decent games like Death Stranding and The Last of Us 2, most of my viewers probably won't watch a video I make if it isn't about Metal Gear Solid. So for now, a shorter, more general, provisional review will have to suffice for this game. If you all want more, show me by getting this video to say above 15,000 views in the first 2 weeks. Then I'll consider making more content about Cyberpunk 2077. But for now, broadly, what did I make of CD Projekt Red's long-awaited game? Is it the train wreck it's been made out to be? And if it is, are there any redeeming features to Cyberpunk 2077? Find out my thoughts now.
Oh boy.
Cyberpunk 2077 may be based on a tabletop game from 1988 I've never played, but anyone even vaguely familiar with this genre of science fiction will recognize how exactly, even devoutly, this game has brought cyberpunk as a concept to life. At least on paper, Night City is every sprawling cyberpunk metropolis from Akira to Blade Runner to RoboCop all rolled into one. And that is something that deserves praise. You could argue no prior iteration of the genre has been this total. Unlike in, say, Hideo Kojima's Snatcher or other cyberpunk games from the genre's heyday in the 90s, and even unlike more recent examples like the reboot of Deus Ex.
Wait a minute. And even with that Snatcher thing, I just saw a documentary about like where the cyberpunk come from. the man Hideo Kojima with that snatcher, because I didn't think that was gonna pop up. I don't know too much about the dude except for he made um what is it? Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding. But after completely like after seeing this documentary, uh, he completely ripped off a Blade Runner. I mean, completely ripped off. I'm surprised the dude didn't get sued. I mean, because it was like damn near beat for beat for beat like Blade Runner. Even his main character looked like dude from Blade Runner. So I'm like, I understand people try to like, they get inspiration from certain stuff. There's nothing wrong with trying to like, get inspiration from stuff, or even if it's like, you think of something and then like, somebody else does your idea first and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? But the man clearly ripped off a Blade Runner. So trying to act like this dude is some like like I said, even if you're trying to take like inspiration from stuff, at least like remix it so it won't feel like you took this thing from somebody else. But if you're like familiar with the cyberpunk genre and you're playing this, you'd be like, yo, this ain't nothing but Blade Runner. I mean, it would be like nothing feels original right now. It's just like name change. Anyway.
Night City's dystopian megacity is of an unbelievably lifelike scale.
And the truth be told, I can't, because this documentary says something about RoboCop. I can't remember what year RoboCop came out. Matter of fact, let me look, but I think like to seriously sit up there and act like Cyberpunk took from RoboCop. No, I think RoboCop came out after. I don't know. Oh, the first RoboCop film came out in '87. And the tabletop, the Cyberpunk, I just said this the other day. Oh, the first iteration was '88. I mean, I just had to check the shit. I wasn't saying dude was lying. I'm just saying. But anyway, let's continue.
There's no sprawling alley, street corner, or storefront that we can't at least pass by. And while the game's huge, the surprising number of flaws and limitations can often make Night City feel empty and barren. Once you start taking on side quests and missions, things, for the duration of those missions, with varying success, can start to feel more lifelike, or at least more lively as a cityscape. Keep in mind for this entire review, I played the game on PC, so obviously if you're playing on console, results may hugely vary. Now, immediately though, we're confronted with the biggest problem with this game. This very desire to fully realize the cyberpunk ethos as a massive open world sandbox. Technically, CD Projekt Red, if I'm not mistaken, still count as an indie studio. The idea that they could ever create a game on par with, say, Grand Theft Auto 5 is clearly insane. And yet that's exactly how the game was marketed, exactly what it tried to be. The one word, I think, to sum up everything about this game's almost...
And you know what, truth, let's go down, let's talk about GTA. I know some people hate GTA, some people talk about it, but at the same time though, if you're talking about an open world game and you got guns in it and you got the possibility of stealing cars, or just even an open world game and it's like an open world game with guns in it. You are not getting out of the shadow of GTA. You're just not doing that. So it doesn't it doesn't even matter like what or how you try to like spin the shit. You're just not getting out of the shadow of GTA. I mean, that's just how it is. Like I said, some people don't like Grand Theft Auto, some people don't like Rockstar, but I mean they're like the kings of this shit until something happens to them. Until because I mean like who was that? Dan Houser just left and Leslie Benzie left a while back and Laszlo. You know you I mean but Sam Houser the brother is still there. You know what I mean? And then Leslie Benzie's trying to come out with this game called Everywhere. So who knows how that's going to be? And he's like damn near like the main dude who came up with Grand Theft Auto in the first place. And then Dan left. So things might change after 6 because I'm pretty sure Dan still is going to have writing credit to GTA 6. So who's to say really, you know? But like we're talking about like Grand Theft Auto like 7, you might like everybody might feel the impact of Dan leaving or whatever the case is, but as of now, like no game that has open world is going to get out of the shadow of Grand Theft Auto. So if you're trying to think like, oh, we could do this, it's like no, and especially how people are comparing, like I mean, even going far back to saying Vice City did things better than Cyberpunk, and Vice City came out what October 2002, and then some even saying GTA 3. I would even go far back as GTA 1 and 2 because they had car chases then. So I don't know. Maybe you could say like maybe the intent of the whole cops not teleporting behind you, but no, I can't even say that. Because I was about to say, like, in the world, they're trying to make it seem like the cops are so corrupt, they don't care about chasing people. Like, that might be an argument, but it's still like, nah, that's not gonna fly. Anyway.
Almost tragic release is hubris. The hubris of these developers, or at the very least their shareholders and higher management, is painfully clear from every meme and online clip of things like AI not working well, of bugs, of jank, and so on. Here are two such random clips that I myself recorded.
Arasaka. Unfortunately, I have no further details to report at this time. We're still awaiting an official statement from the Arasaka Corporation regarding these events. As fuck the rating, you must turn around.
What is going on? I'm not even watching this. Oh shit.
So clearly, this game needed more time. But even aside from bugs and what appear to be mere placeholders, like the missing mysterious sixth attribute, the current pointlessness of including genitalia, or the surprising lack at launch of haircuts, I think even now it's clear some of how this game was designed will never be up to snuff, compared to the just insane level of hype and high expectations that people have, or rather had,
Yeah,
for
I
it.
remember that 6 attribute.
And no amount of
like,
patching, I don't think, will
I
fix
thought he
this.
was gonna hang like that later in the game.
Not only is this game buggy, certain features just don't work. Driving in first person is pretty much impossible, while NPC AI, especially for drivers and police, is unbelievably limited. Combat can often feel like playing a game about 10 to 15 years old, though this gets saved somewhat by the sheer variety of weapons at your disposal. I did appreciate how completing missions non-lethally can often result in slightly different resolutions or even higher payouts, though it has to be said there is very little real gameplay difference apart from increased challenge between, say, knocking enemies out versus taking them out altogether. They'd never wake up, and they can be disposed of or discovered as bodies no differently than corpses. Basically, any gun can be modified to become non-lethal, without any real change though in how it operates beyond lowered damage. I played on hard, so firefights and boss battles for me were nice and tense most of the time. I appreciated how, despite being kind of bullet spongy, enemies usually die after a handful of direct headshots. Plus, the different enemy classes from melee to sniper can keep things interesting and feeling less like taking on the same bad enemy AI over and over. Though maybe not as much as people wanted, Cyberpunk 2077 does have lots of RPG elements, and personally I thought this was an area where the game really worked most of the time. Both in dialogue and in gameplay, I frequently found decisions that I had made while creating and leveling my V coming into play. This is where the game comes the closest for me to something as great as Fallout New Vegas. Like New Vegas, there are skill checks that will alter what I can say and how I can play. New Vegas may have been more sophisticated in this regard, but Cyberpunk still gets closer to it than, say, Fallout 4. One thing Cyberpunk does much worse than Fallout 4 is its perks. Some of them just don't work, while most of them, like abilities in The Witcher 3, just aren't that exciting on their own. And if you want the really good ones, just putting points in your base attributes won't cut it. You'll have a completely separate progress bar, which measures how much you actually are using an attribute. And only by combining these two will really higher tier perks unlock. It isn't the worst system, harkening as it does back to, say, the Elder Scrolls 4, but I don't think it should take quite so long to unlock the really worthwhile perks. Along the way, you'll have to dump points into minor boosts, the kinds of weapon damage or other small stat changes, none of which are particularly too exciting. What I found much more exciting though are the weapon, clothing, and cyberware mods the game has to offer. Though mods and crafting are relatively standard today, they have special relevance for the cyberpunk genre, and this we see on full display in the game's cyberware or body enhancements. If you know where to look, these can provide almost Breath of the Wild-like game-changing new abilities like Super Jump or Berserk Mode. Though extremely expensive, it felt like a step up over even, say, GTA 5 to have things to really want and to use that cost serious money. This made doing side jobs more rewarding and cohesive to my overall experience. Speaking of, I love how rooted side quests are here to the 1940s era detective pulps that the genre is so indebted to. And even when I had to get more violent than investigatory, there's decent variety. Even the smallest stakes side ops keep things interesting, from thievery jobs to sabotage, SOS missions, and mini-bosses. Cyberpunk 2077 opens itself up for derision and mocking vitriol because, well, most people playing it were sold the idea for years and years that this would be a game about tomorrow, a realization of tomorrow, the ultimate next-gen game. In reality, it is absolutely more about yesterday. Both conceptually and mechanically, Cyberpunk 2077 is in love with the past. And that right there, despite its many, many nods to punk songs, albums, and bands, despite its many references to cyberpunk movies, anime, manga, and so on, is the ultimate non-punk move. When asked in 1977 to define punk rock, godfather of the movement Iggy Pop famously said the following: "Punk rock is a word used by dilettantes and heartless manipulators, about music that takes up the energies, the bodies, and the hearts, and the souls, and the time, and the minds of young men who give what they have to it, and give everything they have to it. And it's a term that's based on contempt, a term that's based in fashion, style, and everything that's rotten about rock and roll." The problem with punk, or post-punk, both of which were founded as a radical reinvention of the status quo, is that over time both have invariably become the status quo, no less so than the pop music and culture that they began in turn to challenge, which began back in the 1960s. groups such as the Beatles, a group that completely unironically this game references on multiple occasions. Cyberpunk wants to include everything, even contradictory references, in its constellation of punk and proto-punk influences, without stopping to realize the tensions that are created therein. Putting references to the Beatles next to, say, to the Vandals, as the green V that represents V on the map is, or to lyrics from a band like the Dead Kennedys, to not realize the tension there is to really miss the point. To make a game so seemingly invested in the punk rock ethos that treats its by now ancient trappings and figures as icons threatens to miss the point of punk as an ethos entirely. It may look like it, but it's missing the soul, the substance. And the same, coincidentally, applies also to how this game treats the genre of cyberpunk. More often than not, it is cyberpunk in appearance only. Cyberpunk is no longer some bold, exciting new idea. It's been done. It's died, resurrected, and died again. Cyberpunk has become just another fad or cyclical fashion, perhaps, which will inevitably return anew after long enough, no less surely than, say, aviators or vinyl records. These things have become empty products, commercialized, ironically, even as they declare outright a punk rock disdain for commercialization. The question then is, how does Cyberpunk 2077 differ from those punk rock shirts and belts and bracelets that you can proudly buy from your local Hot Topic? My question going into this game, in other words, was not why Cyberpunk, but why Cyberpunk now? What new things does CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk 2077 have to contribute to this genre? Well, I've realized that despite its original characters and scenarios, the game is not so much a new take or revolution of Cyberpunk as it is an adaptation of it. No differently than how The Witcher was adapted from its pulp novel source material. The objective for CD Projekt Red, in other words, seemed not to be how can we, in rebellious, true punk-like fashion, reinvent or even question and subvert cyberpunk, but rather how faithfully, lovingly, and exactingly can we reproduce its power, its essence, or at the very least, its appearance. This for me explains not only the somewhat generic, if not well realized, cityscapes in the game, but also the equally retro-futuristic approach to base mechanics, to world building, and so on. This is not a vision of the future, but rather a vision of a fictional future as fictionalized by a bygone past. And this applies not only, again, to the story and setting, but down into the mechanics. This game plays like a remake or revision of game design tropes from not the future, but 20, even 30 years ago.
Damn.
The comparison for me repeatedly was not to something like GTA 5 as much as GTA 3.
Wait here. Keep the engine running. This ain't a social call.
This is the place. Wait for me here and keep the engine running.
Oh, look at dude got a grenade in this
Could
place.
say that.
Is this? See, like, okay. I don't know if dude, like, I just see the dude, he had a grenade in his nose. Now, it's like, since this game is so broken and buggy, it almost makes it feel like, was that just, he was just some crazy dude and he just wanted a grenade in his nose? Or was that just some bug that was just, so it's just like certain things about Cyberpunk just, like, I don't know, it's just certain things I come across on that game. Is it like, is it flawed, or is it supposed to be like that? Like, I'm just, sometimes I'm just baffled, basically, like, oh, I guess this is supposed to happen. And then I don't understand, like, I've heard this dude, I mentioned his channel I think yesterday, and I'm like, he was talking about what is the game? He was talking about the Division. And so he's basically talking about how like how some about rainbow sets and all this other stuff. And so he's basically saying it's broken, but you know, he's still playing the game. And I just don't understand where, and it was this particular rapper. I'm not gonna say who this rapper was, but somebody, like, the rapper was bad. He was extremely bad. And people in the comment sections are basically co-signing this dude. Like, basically saying, like, oh, but he went 10 minutes, though. And it's like, but he was bad. Like, why, basically, what I'm trying to say is, why are people co-signing bad stuff like this and accepting it? It's just like, even like with Cyberpunk, like they're talking about how buggy the game is, but the game sold like a lot of copies. They made their money back despite the lawsuits, despite PlayStation doing what it's doing. It's just giving Cyberpunk, like CD Projekt Red, or just whoever the case is, whoever it is, just like, we could just come out with anything and people would just buy it anyway. Like, it's almost like no consequences. Like, oh, people would accept this no matter what. And it's kind of like, it never should have been like this in the first place. Like, that is some weird shit to me. Like, even with this rapper, if he would have got on somebody's radio show, just even looking the way he was looking, nobody would have fucked with him back in the day. Like, back in the day of real hip-hop and rap music, nobody would have fucked with this dude. They would have literally laughed him out of existence. You would have never seen or heard of this dude after that. Then on top of that, him on this radio show, yeah, it was a radio show, I guess. Oh, they would, he really would, if he would have escaped just off of his appearance and he popped up on this radio show, oh man, he would have got destroyed. But it's like, people in the comment sections are basically giving him a cosign still. And it's like nobody would have been like on some real shit back in the day. You would have came out with this broken, buggy game and would have been cool. Everybody would have been like, oh, just let them fix it. They would have been like, we ain't never fucking with this shit. Like, I really don't get, I don't get where society is coming from. I'm just like, it just seems weird. It's like this whole, let's wait for them to get their act together after I paid X amount of dollars for this shit. And then you got like old companies that's been around for a while making products that are supposed to work, but they don't. And I'm spending a lot of money for this shit. It just doesn't sit right with me. I don't care what anybody has to say. Like, oh, because they could patch the shit. Okay, but okay, just say if you what if I don't know. What if the internet went down and everybody had to, like, do shit back in the day? and now companies couldn't patch shit no more. They had to go old school. The only way you could get this game is you bought physical copies. And you get this broken game. Like, there's no way to fix it now since the internet dropped off. The internet doesn't exist no more. It just disappeared. So it's like, now what? What are you gonna do now? We get this game for $60. I'm anticipating this shit. Oh, okay, this is gonna be awesome, and everybody's gonna be doing that stupid shit. Let's go, boy. And it's like, you put it in your system, and then you get something like Cyberpunk. Like, you can't wait till shit gets good. Like, you supposed to get the good shit now. I paid $60 for this shit. Like, why is this acting like this? For the life of me, I don't understand how and why society devolved into this shit. It's almost like people ain't got no standards and scruples and morals no more. It's just like, fuck it. We don't want to do our job the right way. We don't care. And it's like, that's never how it was supposed to be in the first place. It's just a weird. It's just a weird time, I guess. Where it's like people just could accept bullshit. Really? Like, what the fuck is this? What am I buying this shit for? Like, for it to get good? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Maybe somebody could. I don't even want them educating me on this, because there's no justification behind it. Like, that's like you buying a car. I made up this analogy a while back when this whole shit started. I'm like, you bought a car. It's like somebody comes up to you on the street and be like, I'm going to give you a luxury car, and you got like already I don't know, like, I don't know, you got like a Metro Geo or something. You got an old 1991 Metro Geo. Somebody's gonna be like, I'm gonna give you a luxury car, and it's like, okay, cool. Oh, I can't wait. Then you gotta wait 8 years to get it, and it's like, oh, okay. But even if you was like, no, better yet, they say they're gonna give you a luxury car. They never said when, but they keep sending you letters in the mail or something like, yeah, we're gonna get this luxury car, and then you be like, okay, when is the luxury car gonna, when you gonna give it to me? It's like, oh, you're gonna get it when you get it. It's like, oh, okay, all right. I'm not gonna look a gift horse in his mouth, but that's a little shitty ass attitude. But whatever. And then you finally, like, they arrive with the car, and then it's like not the car that you want. You was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get like a Bugatti or a Lamborghini or something, but they give you like a Toyota Corolla or something. Like, it's a better car than you got. And I'm not shitting on Toyota. My grandfather had a Toyota, the same Toyota Corolla. But it's like, I was expecting something else. I was expecting, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was expecting a whole different car, but it's like, oh, you get the Toyota Corolla. It's like, okay, all right. But then you drive it, and the brakes really don't work. The dashboard is janky, and then just like, then you making excuses for it. Like, I could see, you know, I just drive along with everybody else on the road. Like, I don't need to know what speed limit I'm going. I'm just eyeballing it with the people on the road. There's no speedometer. The brakes is like, you got to do something funny with the brakes, that you got to use both feet. Like, this is the Flintstones or something. I mean, it's just weird shit. and you constantly making excuses for it. I just feel like what are we doing here? I'm like, people trying to give excuses too much. Like, this shit is trash. And then it's mighty convenient, or I find it real odd, that somebody that used to talk about Cyberpunk a lot ain't making no videos about the news about this shit. When they started off talking about the news of this shit. I mean, they used to talk about this shit all the time. I mean, news, different shit about the story of the game. Now it's just all gameplay, basically. I just find it weird. But anyway, I'm gonna continue playing Dude video. It's almost over.
To the original Deus Ex or System Shock 2 and that entire era of cyberpunk CRPGs. Trying to blend all this nostalgic, even old school design with a cutting edge, super glossy, high resolution visual style is the car, even train wreck that we're dealing with as the result. There are some things that Cyberpunk 2077 does that do feel new, or at the very least vital, worth doing differently than its ancestors. One example is street cred. In prior GTA games, your character achieved some notoriety statistically as well, but I'm not sure that this criminal score system, which would go up with every minor infraction, really ever mattered. What dictated your rank in the local crime world, more often than not, was merely your overall progress through missions. You'd unlock in games like, say, GTA 3 or Vice City, or even San Andreas, bigger clients by clearing bigger main missions. In Cyberpunk, it seems you can start attracting bigger bosses just by increasing your street rep, which can happen both by doing main quests, but also by doing side diversions. The only thing that really matters is getting that number higher. This will attract not only new missions, but new and more expensive cars for sale. Another thing the game gets completely right, for me anyway, is the writing, or at least the writing when it comes to scenarios and characterization. Personally, I loathed Keanu Reeves' character, but you can't argue that he's ever written inconsistently. He's very well defined. All the characters are well defined, and many of the quests, even the side quests, just as The Witcher 3.
Wait a minute, and then, okay, even with the writing to this, see, a lot of people don't know that Keanu Reeves, since I brought up this issue about Keanu Reeves, like, he was in a group called Dog Star back in the 90s, and I remember, like, in 95, I remember my mom rented Johnny Mnemonic and Friday from Blockbuster. And this is in 1995. And I'm like, playing Cyberpunk is this, it just feels like Johnny Mnemonic, to be honest. I mean, even with the Ripper Doc, like, even though I saw Johnny Mnemonic first, and then I later found out about Cyberpunk. But it's like, regardless of that, it just feels like Spider, who was that, Henry Rollin, he was the Ripper Doc. Johnny Silverhand, he's like I would say a more jaded version of Johnny Silverhand. They both are named Johnny. Like the corporations, who was I can't remember the company in Johnny Mnemonic, but that was like the main like mega corporation. And the dude who played the chief in the Ghost of the Shell movie with Scarlett Johansson was Dude. I'm pretty sure. It just felt like Johnny Mnemonic, the game, basically. So I'm like, that's how I see it. It just felt like Johnny Mnemonics game, which he had a game on PC, but it was like Isaac Hayes was T-Bone. Anyway, but that's just how it is. That's how it seems like to me.
Gained many accolades for doing, offer compelling situations and engaging sudden plot twists. If we were to compare this game to, say, Fallout 4 or even The Outer Worlds, I'd have to admit that I like Cyberpunk's take on sci-fi storytelling and game design the most. There's a brutality that permeates this game, from combat to the music and even the dialogue, that brings everything together in ways that Fallout 4 never did. Cyberpunk 2077 is janky and incredibly flawed, but at least it's coherent. It does manage, in other words, to feel like a complete experience, even if it's a bug-riddled one, like more than the sum of its parts. And for all the brutality, the game has a soft, even humanistic heart. On this, I was frequently and pleasantly surprised. I'll end with this. Some reviews have said that what makes Cyberpunk 2077 special is how it makes Night City the real protagonist. I disagree. Night City for me is the real antagonist, just as ironically CD Projekt Red have wound up as their own worst enemies. How fitting for a game that pits you in a struggle against another version of yourself, using the conceit of Johnny Silverhand to explore the paradox inherent to all games between player and player character. We've seen something like this before in, say, Deadly Premonition or even Metal Gear Solid V: The Phantom Pain, but Cyberpunk 2077 wisely realizes that this mind versus body paradox or tension is very important to the genre that it so devoutly worships. My only major regret is that even once it's been patched to high hell, there will still be this much adoration and uncomplicated orthodoxy surrounding how the devs chose to approach this game's ancestors. They've tried even on the opening screen to hand-wave away any criticism or critical thinking when it comes to interpreting video games as somehow beneath true art. This old-fashioned take where sacred cows of the canon must never be criticized or questioned, and where things like politics or critical theory must be gate-kept away, must have no place amid the rarefied air of Mount Olympus. It's all unbelievably non-punk. Given how ironically CD Projekt Red's upper management seemingly became the very kind of evil corporation that this genre was supposed to fight, it makes sense that punk was never something, again, for all their posturing and, dare I say, virtue signaling, that they could ever understand. What we're left with is merely a power fantasy of fighting corporations, one that we have to get in bed with corporations to fantasize. One of my favorite punk bands growing up, Sonic Youth, once implored the listener to kill your idols. If only CD Projekt Red had truly listened. Until next time, boss.
Like I said this before in yesterday's video. Like, these dudes that YouTube, it's just that when they use these type of words like virtue signaling and shit, it just makes me, my antennas raise, like, oh shit, you know what I mean? What? Oh, it's just my antennas raise up. I'm like, oh, you say you doing the most, and you saying stuff crazy. But anyway, I mean, I basically somewhat deal what I had to do with this outfit for now. I mean, I wasn't gonna like do some real like fleshed out stuff, cause like I said, today was just an odd day, and it had me in this funny headspace. And I was like, oh, I didn't even want to make a video on nothing. But yeah, it's just like when I keep hearing these dudes and they say shit like that, I'm just like, okay, what is his problem? Like I said, I never heard of this dude until now. But I don't know, given given the way he sounds, given the way he was talking, like I said, my antennas raised up. Like, oh, you gonna get one of these dudes. And that's why I'm like, that's what's making me feel like YouTube, like, I'm just like, I don't know. Because it's not like I really care about these dudes' opinions. It's just, it's just like even like doing this. If I'm not listening to music or even the stuff that I listen to, I heard it to death, damn near. But it's like, if I want to listen to just something, just let me listen to something. I jump on hear what somebody gotta say, like just basically white noise in the background. But it just feels like the more is I keep hearing these type of folks, it's just putting me off, like. And then sometimes you're not even like anticipating some bullshit to come up, but sure enough, you listen to them long enough, oh, here comes the shit. And I'm just kind of like tired of it, you know what I mean? And it's just so, and it's to a not even to a certain degree, a large part of it is cowardly, because it's just like, you're in your house, nobody sees who you are, you know what I mean? You could basically say whatever you want to say and not, be recognized in the street in case somebody don't like, what you said or something. You could just hide under the radar. And it's just like I've been fooled too many times by people like that. Like, okay, I like what this dude is saying, I guess, or like he's entertaining enough, he or she. But then you be listening to a video and they say something crazy, you be like, oh wow. And I spent like 2 months invested into this dude's channel. You know what I mean? And you just be like, nah, fam, I can't deal with this. But like as of now, like I said, I'm basically done with this. Cause I'm not completely done with it, but the basic idea is there. So yeah, I mean the basic idea is there. So I'm gonna just bounce, but it's just, and then I gotta do some shit with my phone because that's the thing that got me in this fucked up headspace to begin with. But yeah, I'm about to shut this down. But it's just crazy, and you just be like, I don't know. I mean, dude, what he was saying, I could agree with some of the stuff he was saying. You know, for the most part, yeah. But again, it's the people behind the videos that it's just questionable. But I'm out.